The bounce back from Nebraska's first loss of the season is underway, and big news on the recruiting front Sunday night. We get into it next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase.
All right, welcome in. Happy Monday. Still many things to get to today on the show. Connor Happer from 1620 The Zone in Omaha, and Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. But let's go off the beaten path for just a quick second here. I guess if you want to view it that way. Maybe you're not familiar, but Nebraska's quarterback Dylan Raiola, he has a little brother. And he's in the class of 2026. So he's a junior in high school right now. And he committed to Nebraska over the weekend. And so that sort of, it maybe distracts people from some other things. Nebraska loses their first game in the Dylan Raiola era, and his little brother commits and as they put it on social media, as he committed, continues the legacy.
Oh, the legacy. I mean, the legacy is strong, of course, when you go back a generation ago with Dominic Raiola. And the legacy is certainly growing with Dylan Raiola, thrown for almost 1,000 yards in his young career. But look, this I don't believe was necessarily coincidental, the timing here. After the first loss, the sky is falling in some corners. We may have spoken in that tone on Saturday during our reaction pod. There was a lot to dissect and to throw your arms in the air about, particularly the way that overtime went for Nebraska on Friday night against Illinois. And check out our pod from Saturday. As I mentioned, the reaction pod, just to reset. In case you didn't notice, Nebraska lost 31-24 in overtime to Illinois, its first loss of the season, Friday night at Memorial Stadium. It was not pretty at the end of that game. It was not pretty in the second half of that game for Nebraska. Illinois essentially operated Nebraska's game plan and became the more physical team, ran the football in the second half, and won the game, made the plays when everything was on the line. That's what Nebraska wants this team to do. So, to take some of the attention away from that, here comes the younger brother of the starting quarterback, and he's got an announcement to make. And Sunday night was a perfect time for him to do it because now some people are talking about Dayton Raiola. We know the way recruiting works, not just at Nebraska, but around the country in college football. And when you've got word of a recruit, especially a quarterback recruit, especially at Nebraska, a quarterback recruit with the last name Raiola, hey, that's going to suck a lot of the air out of the room. And I think that's what we saw Sunday night on social media.
Let me say this. I love the Raiolas. And Dom is a Husker legend, and Donnie's a pretty good offensive line coach, it seems. And Dylan is a very good quarterback, and I'm sure Dayton will as well. But let me tell you this, Mitch. I don't care. I'm still focused on Illinois. I'm still mad about it. The Raiolas aren't going to try and trick me and make me look the other way. Not today. I'm still angry about it. And I think other people should be too.
You have good, rare focus. I am admiring your ability to keep your eye on the ball.
Yeah.
What is the number one thing, Connor, that is still that burr under your saddle about Friday night?
Oh boy. I don't know. I think it's, I don't know. There's a lot of different stuff. We went into the offset. For the physical part is obviously pretty concerning. Nebraska's defense, we might have to sort of just reset on the things that we thought we knew, or at least change the bar or whatever it might be. I don't know. Maybe that's the case, or maybe it's just a blip on the radar, but there's that. But I don't know. I'm thinking about over the weekend, I'm thinking about the mental piece a little bit. And it's something that has not, I mean, it's been talked about all summer long and, even into last year. And there's just stuff that's baked into the DNA of the Nebraska program. That's just, it's clearly not fixed yet. Nebraska absolutely fell apart with the game on the line, like many times, and it's not like their freshman quarterback was, devoid of it either. He missed a throw too. So I don't know. A lot. I think it's a game that Nebraska could have had, and I think that you could be 4-0 right now with a looking down the barrel of 5-0, and things are looking good. Maybe it's a good thing that they got the loss out of the way or whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure if I buy that though.
I tend to think it's never a good thing to lose. Now, Ty Robinson said after the game that sometimes when you win, the things that need to be corrected, they get swept under the rug a bit, and it's harder to see them in a win. And a loss always provides some clarity that gives you an opportunity to really look at the things that went wrong. Is that okay? Like,
Yeah.
Is that the way that it is at Michigan? Is that the way that it is for Alabama when it loses? Or is it every single ounce of energy that exists is pointed in the direction of doing everything but losing a game? And of course, Nebraska didn't want to lose this game, but I was a little bit, it gave me a moment of pause to hear, and I know he's trying to put a spin on this stuff, but like, you should be able to figure out what's wrong and what you need to fix from a win. Like, if the standard is where it needs to be, and there's been all this talk about how the standard has raised, and I believe that it has. If Nebraska wins that game 27-24, if John Holm makes that field goal and they get a defensive stop and they walk off that field, deep sigh of relief, Nebraska wins 27-24. Aren't all the things that we're talking about this week still present? Is it not hitting home if they win? Is it more difficult to improve after a win than it is after a loss? I would hope, and I understand some of that's just human nature, but you've got to be, as you said, the mental piece has to be stronger than that.
I agree. I agree. And, like you said, I think some of it is just human nature. You get a bad result and then you're more likely to just really look back and tear apart everything. But man, you're right. This needs to, this is something, and I don't know, maybe the answer that we get at the end of the day is that the answers, they obviously could have played better, but maybe they just weren't as good as we thought they were. Like, all of that stuff is kind of floating around in my head right now. Is this a horrible overreaction after one game, one loss? Possibly. I'm willing to admit that, but I do think it's on the table. Like, I think it's something that we sort of have to think about a little bit. Maybe while Nebraska was 3-0 and they had that nice win over Colorado, we jumped a couple steps or something like that. But you're right. Nebraska needs to be able to if the standard is the standard, fix the things that it needs to fix, even while they're winning games. And they're gonna have some more. Maybe Purdue is one of those this week. I'm not going into this one where I'm thinking like, hey, they better watch out. But at the same time, they can't take it for granted either.
I will say this for Ty Robinson. What's he supposed to say? Like, he's a sixth-year senior, and he's up there, and it's 20 minutes after the game, and you put him in front of the cameras, and there are reporters asking questions that are difficult for him to answer. What does it feel like to lose? Did you see this coming? All whatever. The questions. It's late at night. Everybody's working, trying to get sound bites, and it's not always ideal, especially for the player who is there. And, he comes up with a comment about how sometimes it's okay, not okay, that sometimes you learn more from a loss. And I think it's probably right, but
yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Whatever. I don't think we need to dissect that anymore. It's not like Ty Robinson is, on the wrong side of the mentality that Nebraska needs to have. No, he's one of the leaders, and he's trying to be a leader in that moment. He's thinking about what he needs to do within the team structure when he gets back to being around the team on Sunday. Like, how am I going to approach this with the younger guys if they're hanging their heads? Like, hey guys, come on, let's go. Like, we can learn something from this. So it's an older guy doing older guy stuff.
Okay, so sorry to derail things. Do you have any?
That's all right.
You have any thoughts on Dayton? Because I don't know much about him. That's the other thing. I don't know much about him. Doesn't seem to have as big of like this circle around him as his older brother does. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to go, and that's probably a good place to end it too. Like, we can talk very quickly. Somebody asked me that on Sunday night. I would say a Nebraska fan who doesn't follow this every day. Like, hey, how come Dayton's not like Dylan, who was the number one player in the country at this time when he was Dayton's age? Are they the same kind of quarterback? Well, no, they're not the same kind of quarterback. Dayton is a different kind of athlete. I think at the end of this is going to be somebody who's probably more athletic at the quarterback position, or maybe will run more often at the quarterback spot. He's left-handed, so that means a lot to the offensive line when you have a left-handed quarterback. The right tackle is going to be the main protector for Dayton whenever and wherever he becomes a fixture at the QB position. But the reason that he does not have, or a big part of the reason that he does not have a lot of the hype around him that Dylan did, is because this is his first year starting at the varsity level. He followed Dylan around from Arizona to Georgia and played JV football as a sophomore last year and just got his chance. He's played 4 games or so as a high school quarterback at an extremely high level of competition in Buford, Georgia. And he hasn't hit the camp circuit the way that Dylan did when he was trying to make a name, not just for himself, but like rekindle that family name. Dayton hasn't needed to do it. He got the Nebraska offer when he was a freshman in high school. And honestly, more so than Dylan, I don't think there's ever been a doubt about where Dayton Raiola was going to go to school. He's worn the Nebraska love on his sleeve, even more so than what Dylan did as a young quarterback. So this was inevitable that he would be a part of this class. And I don't think the ranking matters all that much. When the tape is in and people, the recruiting analysts, evaluate his film from this junior year that he's having right now at Buford, I imagine he's going to get a pretty good ranking. And what does it matter anyway?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate that. Maybe that does kind of straighten me out a little bit. That feels a little bit better. Because I don't know that
your therapy.
Many people know much about Dylan's younger brother quite yet, but they are soon to find out here in the coming months. All right, let's take a quick break. Thanks for watching with us. Subscribe to the YouTube page. It helps us out. Leave a comment, like it, all those things in between. We'll be back after this. All right, it's Happer here for the FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL fans, I know you're out there. I'm one of them. I'm speaking to myself, I guess, in this situation. You could start the season with a big return on the FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, as you know, it's looking like this might be a little lopsided, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page, all where you place your bets. That's right. That's what the FanDuel Sportsbook, it's all there. You could also, basically, you could use it as your score app as well. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Visit that today. Once again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Welcome back on this Monday edition of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I am Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer, 1620 The Zone in Omaha, is here with me. Connor, since we're talking about the Raiolas in this episode, I want to continue the conversation that we had from our Saturday reaction pod. We covered a lot of ground during that 30 minutes. Something that we did discuss, and this was really on my mind a lot on Sunday, is that 3rd and 3 play from the Nebraska 21-yard line, last drive of regulation for the Huskers. We know what happened. There were 4 players brought in who are more suited for the run game, and Nebraska ran a play with them that sent those 4 receivers, including the fullback, into a pass play. They all ran routes, and on some level, it was genius of Marcus Satterfield to call that in this game. I'm not saying it was genius in that moment, but to call that in this game, because it led to what very easily could have been a big play and almost was a giant play. So I had some conversations with people around the Nebraska, Husker Nation this weekend about that, and heard very strong opinions on the side that say Nebraska should not in any circumstance be running should not in that circumstance be running this play. Why do you take your best players, your best pass catchers off the field? No Banks, no Nair, no Lloyd, no Barney, no Fedoni in that situation when it is essential that you get the first down. And I can see it both ways. I don't believe that this was some horrible crime that Marcus Satterfield and Matt Rule committed, but I'm open to discussion and to diving deeper into this situation on 3rd and 3 in the fourth quarter.
I think that's fair. So you go into like a results versus, okay, how did you get there type of thing? Like, did you take the right steps to get there? Well, I mean, the result of it was an incomplete pass and then a missed field goal after that, which was brutal and devastating. But I guess the result of the play was a wide open person in the back of the end zone on a throw that the quarterback hits, I don't know, 95 out of 100 times or something, like maybe even more or something like that. I still can't figure out why he missed it. I think I was watching it back, like really slow, like Zapruder style. Like I think maybe Lindenmeyer, kind of got the sense that he was open a little bit too early and started looking back in, and maybe didn't really finish the route the way that he should have. Like there's a little bit of that's going on in there, but you get open, you're like, whoa, I'm open. Like I'm going to score.
He was almost too open.
Yeah.
Dylan saw him, and even though he was way down the progression list, he saw him, and I think his eyes got big, and his fundamentals broke down just a little bit on that throw. Now, there was a pass rusher coming at him, so it's harder to step into a throw when you've got a linebacker breathing down your throat or a defensive end. But he threw off the back foot a little bit, which possibly caused that throw to sail a few feet.
Yeah. So I still go back to, I think it's open to interpretation. It's open to be debated, but like, first of all, let's go back. I heard some people on Friday night in the heat of the moment calling into our post-game show, and they were like, why aren't you running the ball there? Well, I'll tell you why they're not running the ball there, because they couldn't run the ball. So that's off the table, right? You don't need to be doing that and trying to say that you're bigger and badder when you're clearly not. Like, put the ball in your best player's hand, and they did so. So I don't have a real problem with what they did, and I think if you ran it again, you're able to complete the pass, but you don't get do-overs in that situation. So I'm not mad about what happened. Obviously disappointed in how it turned out.
If he hits Lindenmeyer, who's caught one pass in his career for the touchdown there, and that's the decisive play in the game, we're talking about this. This is again kind of like the last topic. It's just the nature of it. Like we're talking about this like a signature moment for Satterfield to have the guts to pull those guys off the field and put in your backups. Like it's like putting your money where your mouth was, because they've talked all through the offseason and the early portion of the season about their depth and how they're not going to be maybe they don't say it this way, but part of, I think, what their intention is they're not going to be an offense that's predicated by personnel. Like it's predictable by who you put on the field. And that's kind of an NFL thing too. Like you can't just tell the opponent what you're doing because of the personnel that you have on the field. So Nebraska has to be able to run pass plays when Luke Lindenmeyer and Alex Bullock are on the field. Now, the moment to put things on tape in order to influence games in the future is not 3rd and 3 from the 21-yard line with the game on the line. Like do that at a different point. Now, if they'd have ran that play on 2nd and 3 or 2nd and 6, whatever it was on 2nd down, that would have been a little bit less risky. There would have been a little bit less riding on it, because then if you miss the throw, you can definitely go back before you have to make that decision about a field goal. You can definitely go back to having your bread and butter out there in the pass game. It's
yeah,
easy to second guess.
Like they ran it and it got open. That's kind of, where it doesn't end the conversation, but that's sort of what I go back to. Now, let me ask you another one, and you just sort of hit on it there. Any further thoughts about 4th down?
Yeah, I think they should have gone for it. Like, they don't have a kicker. They don't have a reliable kicker. He's never made a field goal, John Hole. Like, he never played in a college game or kicked a field goal in a college game before Friday night. So if Alvano's available and he's feeling good, maybe then it's a different conversation. But with John Hole, put him in that spot the first time, I realized he kicked in some extra points earlier in the day. So it wasn't like the first time you put him on the field, but no, that's everything going through that kicker's head in that moment. You got a snapper who just started doing it the week before. Your chances of picking up 4th and 3, I'll say it before the play, I'll say it after the play, are greater than making a 39-yard field goal.
Yeah. I don't know. That's another hindsight there too. I think for me, because if it's me, I probably still kick the field goal. I'm trying to think of the situation as it presented itself to me. I probably still kick it, but man, you knew it was going to be about a 50-50 chance whether he made it or not. So
if that, Rule said it's a very makeable field goal, which it is in almost every situation. But I don't know if it is for Nebraska in this spot. Like, they're doing things. I think they're coaching this team, and they're doing various things throughout the week and throughout their games, like it's an NFL situation. Like, and I think that helps Nebraska in the long run to coach the team like they're doing things in the NFL. And I think we talked about this last week. I definitely heard conversation about this last week. Like, the way Nebraska played in the second half of its first 3 games was very much like an NFL team. Totally. Like, they're not trying to score 63. They're trying to build depth. They're trying to get everyone on their roster opportunities to play. They're trying to salt the game away, run for 75 yards in the fourth quarter,
win by
play
1.
it the way an NFL team would play it, where a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter feels great. That's not always the college way, but it is where Matt Rule just came from. And in the NFL, you kick that thing 10 times out of 10 on 4th and 3 with 3 minutes left in the game. Nebraska's in a different spot right now than NFL teams who have multi-million-dollar kickers.
All right, we'll take a quick time out here. We'll come back. There will be still much more. Maybe for every episode this week, Mitch, we just take an individual thing that happened in the Illinois game and just pick it apart. For 5 minutes.
We're going to drive ourselves insane if we do that. We could do it though.
Let's turn the page just momentarily here up to Purdue. We'll kind of look back over the weekend and what some of the other schools saw as well. We'll be back after this.
Okay, college football season is here. The pennant races are winding down in Major League Baseball. Mitch Sherman here to tell you about Game Time. It is an exciting time in sports, and if you've got a game that you want to see in person, Game Time will make that experience so much easier. It is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. I'm not talking about the Royals. It makes getting tickets, and I'm not talking about the Royals. You can get tickets. They're not at home anymore. I'm just not talking about them because they are making me very unhappy.
Yep.
Game Time makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the app go down the closer you get to the first pitch, the closer you get to kickoff. So whatever you've got on your schedule this fall, concerts, MLB games, the postseason, maybe it's a college football game you want to get to. If it's a hot ticket, it's there. I love that you can see flash deals. You can see views from your seat. You can customize your spot in the stadium. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Use Game Time. Download the app. Create an account. And punch in the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the app today. Game Time, last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. Nebraska's opponent this weekend is Purdue. It will be at 11 a.m. on Saturday morning. It'll be on Peacock. There's sure to be some conversation about that throughout the week. But as is tradition, when Nebraska goes to Purdue, there won't be very many people there. I'm certain it will be very cloudy, and it'll be no greater than 58 degrees. So that's pretty much how it goes when Nebraska goes to Purdue, and hopefully they could avoid the injury bug that has bit them when they've gone to Purdue.
Pre-game injuries.
Times. Pre-game injury. There's been during the game injuries, like catastrophic ones.
Yeah.
So Purdue has allowed 10 rushing touchdowns this year, more than the total of these teams combined. Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Ohio State, Michigan, Northwestern, Indiana, Penn State, Washington.
Almost half the Big Ten.
I was going to say that's almost a quarter of the Big Ten.
Those teams, that's like a tenth of the Big Ten. Those teams have allowed 9 touchdowns on the ground together. Nebraska, Iowa, and Illinois have allowed 0 rushing touchdowns. Purdue has allowed 10. Now, a lot of that had to do with the 60-something that Notre Dame hung on the Boilers a couple of weeks ago. But hey, that's a game, and Nebraska is going to play a game against Purdue, and this is an opportunity for Nebraska to get some balance, I think, back into its offense, to get well in its rushing game. It's going to need the rushing game in the second half of the season. Like it's going to get cold. They're going to play UCLA and Wisconsin at Memorial Stadium in November. They're going to play Iowa at Kinnick at night on Black Friday. You got to be able to run the ball.
Yeah.
Great freshman quarterback. He throws it really well, but it's not always going to be a day to throw the ball late in the season in the Big Ten. So here's an opportunity, not just against Purdue, which allows 5.6 rushing yards per attempt. Only 2 Power 4 programs nationally are worse than that, but also against Rutgers the week after. Rutgers, known as a physical football team, isn't great against the run either. It's allowing 5.5 yards per rush, just 1/10 better than Purdue. So these next 2 games, I think, are really important for Nebraska's offense to get back to running the ball.
So Purdue's coming off a loss to Oregon State in Corvallis, where they kept them. The Beavers kept the Boilermakers at arm's length pretty much the entire game and won 38-21. Oregon State, who is a decent program. A
first year coach
kicked
coach, out of its league.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say Power 5, but that's not true.
Not anymore.
Sad to say. They ran it for 341 against Purdue on Saturday.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There it is. There it is, Nebraska. Nebraska ran for 1 yard in the second half. I'm being kind and not including overtime, or it would be in the negative 30 range. And these include sacks. I did go back and take the sacks out of it. Nebraska's second half rushing total against Illinois, 8 rushes by running backs for 26 yards after halftime. So not only was the production poor, the commitment to running the ball was not there.
Yeah.
Huskers didn't run a lot of plays in the second half. Didn't have a lot of offensive opportunities because Illinois continued to have 7, 8, 9 play drives and take time off the clock. That's why Nebraska scored just 7 points in the second half. But when it did have the ball, it wasn't all that interested in running it, even though the Huskers never trailed in the second half.
I think it's pretty clear that Nebraska's offense feels like it can score points, and I think that's true. But there's certain parts of it that you're just going to you're going to have to be able to do late in these games. And I don't exactly know how this'll go this week. Like I don't have a great. It's only Monday, I guess, but I don't have a great vibe about what we're going to see on Saturday from Nebraska. They've been really. After disappointing losses last year, they tended to respond emotionally pretty well. So I think you could sort of bank on that a little bit. But maybe some of Nebraska's issues, especially in the run game and then stopping the run, like I said earlier in the show, are just what they are. And it's not dependent on this like emotional card that we have to play with them all the time. Well, if this would have happened, then this would have happened, and this would have happened. Maybe they're just not as good at it as we thought they were going to be. And in the case of the run game of the offense, I don't know that we thought they were going to be very good at it anyway. So that bar was already pretty low. It's a big moment for them for sure. It's gotta look a lot better than it has on Saturday morning.
Yeah, and I wonder how that will look. Dante Dowdell clearly has emerged as the guy that Nebraska wants to lean on, and he went for about 70 yards against Illinois, while Ramir Johnson and Emmett Johnson weren't as much of the game plan in the Big Ten opener. So does Nebraska try to incorporate? I think Emmett Johnson has earned an opportunity to get a few carries to be in the game, and he's good in pass protection. I think Ramir Johnson can be involved too, probably more in a third down role and more in a catching passes out of the backfield. But get those guys involved. It doesn't have to be all Dowdell.
I agree. We'll see what kind of diversity they have in there too, and we'll hear from Matt Rhule at his Monday press conference later on today. So we'll see after you take the emotion out of what Friday night was, sort of what the grand takeaway is going to be. From that one. That'll be sort of exciting to hear. All right. That is it for us today. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman. We'll be back with you tomorrow. There will be plenty to break down from Matt Rhule's press conference. And if we really want to look back from individual moments from the Illinois game, it could be fun at the very, fun in a sad way, in a weird way.
Just extend the misery. We'll do it.
We'll keep our eye on that one. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you. And so this is your first listen. We got your second listen all lined up for you. It's the Locked On College Football Podcast. You can check out the link to that show in the description of this very show, whether you're watching on YouTube or whichever audio platform you're listening on as well. That's the Locked On College Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.